NAB in person and walking around the booth, come say hi. We're interviewing Oren Soffer.
Soffer.
Soffer. Thank you for the correction
I got
right
you.
before we go live.
I got you.
How are you doing? How's your NAB been? Well,
Fun. Oh, here we go.
Here we go. How's it going, everybody? We are at the Kondor Blue booth at NAB live with Oren Soffer, DP of The Creator is how a lot of you know him, I'm sure, and a DP of many other very amazing projects.
That you do not know, but it's okay.
But you
That's
could
humble beginnings.
Humble beginnings.
That's how it goes.
As with all of us.
Yeah.
And that's a great place to start.
How's it going? How's it going, everyone? Yeah.
Tell us about your humble beginnings, where you came from. I think a lot of people obviously know you from The Creator, but where did you start? I think there's often a facade of Hollywood and big productions, and how do you climb the ladder, so to speak, to as you have?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this for about 10 years professionally. I went to NYU Film School. That's how it started. That was 2010 when I started that, so 14 years ago. I need a moment to sit with that. And yeah, I've been doing filmmaking for a long time, since middle school. That's when I kind of got into it. Very big painter, artist, a lot of art before that, and then kind of found filmmaking in middle school with my group of friends.
Yeah.
And haven't looked back since, pretty much. Yeah, but so it's been, a climb. Like 10 years of indie films and shorts, commercials, music videos, a little bit of everything. And then got lucky with a big break.
What do you think the moment was? You say you got interested in middle school. When do you feel like there was a significant switch or a certain moment where you were like, I want to be a DP, I want to do cinematography specifically?
Well, no. And I was interested in painting and art and visual arts, and I got into photography as well around that time, middle school, high school. So I think visual art was always at the forefront, but I also just really liked movies. And so I think for a long time I was like, I'll be a director. But I had a best friend in high school, and we made all of our movies together, and we would co-direct them. But I was setting up the camera and doing all the shots and all the angles and the lighting, and then he was directing the actors. So it's like, oh, so he was directing and I was DPing.
Yeah.
I just didn't really have the words to kind of understand that. But when I got to film school, I think I still thought I would go into directing, and I took a writing class. I'm shit at writing, which I knew, but then you take a whole class and you're like, oh, well, this is really painful. Maybe I should just focus on the cinematography thing. So I did, and I really do. I do prefer it. I do like it. Directing's hard. Too hard.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Too
much politics, too much stuff.
Yeah.
You got to deal with that isn't filmmaking.
Sure.
Yeah.
What do you look for in a director when you are approached about collaborating on a project, whether it's a commercial or a longer form thing? What are some key call-outs or key red flags or green flags, like I want to work with this person?
Well, it's really just having a vision. I know that sounds so corny and everybody says that, but that's really what it is. It's just having a vision, knowing what you want, knowing what you like, talking in specifics. Those are usually the things. When people start being all wishy-washy, I'm like, there's no specificity there. That's a red flag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any pieces of advice for DPs that are navigating their careers, climbing the ladder slowly as they navigate working with new directors, of things they should look for, and how you also learn what you as a DP, like in terms of working with different people?
I think, at the end of the day, people have different personalities, right? And this is an industry of relationships. And so the first and foremost thing is you want to find your people. There are really great, talented directors out there, many of whom I've met, who, I don't think I would get along with on a shoot. And that doesn't say anything negative about their personality or my personality or anything. Just a different vibe, different fit. And it's I can think of DPs that would fit them perfectly, that are totally that vibe, that isn't me. And I gravitate towards certain directors and a certain type of person. And I think that's helpful to sort of know how to find your people and how to recognize it. Other than that, I think it really is just it's finding your taste and honing and developing your taste, and then finding directors that align with that taste. Taste disconnect is probably the biggest issue in a director DP
Sure.
collaboration, or can be the biggest sticking point. If there isn't an alignment on like what you like and what they like, you're going to be fighting each other the whole time.
For sure.
And that's not going to be a good collaboration.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest part, is learning your taste, identifying your taste, developing it, honing it. I think it can be honed. It's something that it's not fixed. And yeah, you have to find it. You have to find it through your own work. You have to find it through exposure to other art forms, watching films, looking at paintings.
For sure. Yeah. What do you think that was for you in particular with The Creator, that being, what a lot of people know you from, obviously, in terms of your introduction and relationship with Gareth Edwards, the director of the movie, and also Greg, who brought you into the movie, and that being sort of a quick timeline from what I've heard from you, if you want to provide a little context on that, and also go into that as far as like when you are forced to build that relationship quickly and then just dive right in on this, the biggest thing you had done in your career at the time, right?
Yeah.
What is that like, and how do you approach that differently?
Well, I mean, there wasn't really time to think about how to approach it. I just had to go with it.
Sure.
But what I relied on was I've known Greg for many years, and I know his work. So I trust him. I trust because I know his personality and I know his taste. I already knew that stuff, and I knew that it aligned with me. So I made an educated guess, having only hopped on one Zoom call with Gareth before hopping on the project, that we would get along, because if he and Greg have a similar taste and similar personalities, it'll probably work out for me.
Sure, yeah.
And it did. So it was a bit of a gamble, but I took an educated guess that it's like, if Greg is on board and is endorsing this and thinks this would be a good fit, I trust that. And yeah, trust goes a long way. It's a big part of that relationship building is matching personalities, matching taste, but what that leads to is trust. And trust is really big, really important, I think, especially in the DP director relationship, because the goal would be, hopefully, is you want to end up on the same page, to the point where you don't even need to like overly communicate with each other even. You want to be able to just know what the director wants.
Yeah.
And understand that vision, understand that taste without having to constantly communicate about it. And you want them to be able to trust you to that whatever you're doing will align, so that when they glance over at the monitor after they've been busy with a million other things, and they glance over and say, oh, I like that. And building that relationship, I think, is kind of the most important thing. But some of it is just an intangible, like, human relationship thing.
Sure.
That you can't force, you can't build. It's just natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got lucky that it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
I mean, it is also, as you said, the human relationship is so important. So there is some luck aspect, but it's also you as a person, right? And how you interact outside of filmmaking entirely, but with other people as a human, know?
And I think, I don't know, I mean, it's an interesting question. Like, some people will say, oh, they build a certain persona, or they present themselves or carry themselves a certain way. Like, what do you present from yourself to the world, social media, in person, whatever it is. But I think for a long time, especially more recently, like, I've really been a big believer in, you just got to be yourself. You just got to be yourself, be honest about yourself, your interests. There's no point trying to pretend you're somebody you're not, hiding things that, you think might be embarrassing. It's like I love Legos.
Yeah.
I'm very open about that. I want to work with directors who like Legos. You know what I mean?
I love that.
That's
yeah.
just one example.
Sure.
But it's like, that's why I think it's good to be open about it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I want to find other nerds.
Yeah.
To work with, because that's who I get along with.
Sure.
I don't want to pretend I'm a cool kid, because I'm not.
Yeah.
So,
and most people would read through that, right? Like.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
You could totally tell when someone's being fake.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm just like, it's just too exhausting to even try.
Yeah. Do you feel like the parallels of the director-DP relationship also carry down to your relationship with your gaffer, with your key grip, with your ACs? How is that the same, and how
not
is
as
that
much.
different?
Not as much.
Okay.
I think that at the end of the day, there's a bit of a different dynamic with your crew, where your crew, I mean, it certainly helps to have positive, like friendly relationships with your crew, but I don't think it's a necessity. In fact, in some instances, it can get in the way.
Sure.
And I think that's something I've changed. I've evolved on over time a little bit. Like with the director, you really are in the trenches. Like you are right there. You are the right-hand person. You have to be there with them the whole way through. You have to be their shrink and their best friend and everything. You do not need to be your gaffer's shrink or best friend. And your gaffer does not need to be your shrink or best friend.
Sure.
Like, that's what the director's for. The gaffer, the key grip, the crew, ultimately, I do think it's more important for them to be good at what they do and to align with you on taste. I mean, taste is a big one. On principles, like work ethic, speed, priorities, and also just their overall personality. Like, are you a pleasant person to work with? I think that's the most important. But less important to like be their friend.
Sure.
In fact, in some ways, it can end up being a bit of a distraction to like feel the pressure to like be friends with the crew.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the crew can be friends with each other, which I think is important. Like crew camaraderie amongst themselves, I think is important. They're all working together, and so I think that helps when they all get along with each other. But I don't feel like I need to kind of insert myself into that sometimes. Yeah. Actually, a lot of times, because I'd rather keep myself available to focus on other things. And also it's a little tricky because like with the director, it's really a partnership, creative partnership. I mean, you're there to support them, but you're working together. Your gaffer, your crew, you are their boss. So it's a different dynamic.
Sure, yeah.
It's just a bit of a different dynamic.
It's almost more efficient to not be friends if you're like telling them to do certain things or whatever. And
yeah, and that's not to say be mean or be an asshole or be antisocial, but I think there is a little bit more of distance there.
Sure.
I don't prioritize it as much as director. I would rather have the most experienced, best for the job gaffer that I'm not friends with than, just hiring a friend and they're fine.
That's super fair.
Yeah.
You talked about speed.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about that in the context of the creator and in the format you shot it, the way you shot it, lighting-wise, but also a lot of people, I'm sure, are familiar camera-wise and the rigs you had and everything. Talk to me about approaching a project of that scale, but in comparison to some of the commercial stuff or short films you might have done previous, a lot smaller scale in terms of the gear and the lights, et cetera.
Yeah, well, I mean, speed was the key thing there, and speed, it was not speed for the sake of speed. There was a very specific reason behind it, and the reason is, if you've flown halfway around the world to a beautiful location, and you have A-list actors, and they're in costume, and they are sweaty, and they are, they're in this beautiful set-dressed place. Production design has busted their ass to make this place look good. They're looking good. They're in the zone. They're in the moment. We have the camera. We have everything there. The more time you spend not shooting just feels horrible. Mm-hmm. You're like, we've come all this way. We're like at the top of a mountain. It's stunning. It's a crime not to be rolling on as much of this as possible.
Sure, yeah.
To get performance, to get the material for the film, for the director, for the editor to work with. And so that I hate that feeling. And so does Gareth. So that worked well. But I just I hate feeling like, why aren't we shooting? And I didn't feel that way just on this project. I feel that way in general. But on this project, it was really, it was a big part of it. It was like, we should be shooting.
Yeah.
We should be taking advantage of being here and coming all this way. So all the decisions, the gear, the footprint, it was all speed. It was like, how can we set up things as quick as possible? How can we go from one shot to another without spending half an hour to set up the crane, set up this, set up that? Like, we want to be able to go boom, 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 shoot things, bang them out, not get too precious with the lighting, not get too precious with the grip gear, have the lightweight camera, the small footprint. All of it was in service of that.
Sure. Yeah. Do you feel
our
like
camera with Kondor Blue accessories, by the way?
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the specific camera rig? I know.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of people, I'm sure, know the FX3 was the core of the build. But
yes.
Talk about some of the other stuff you used and Gareth operating, how that experience was. Yeah.
Well, so the core of the rig was the FX3 on a Ronin RS2. Now, just over there's the DJI booth. Now they have a Ronin RS4.
crazy how things change so quickly.
And it looks really cool. I bet that would have been a really great tool for us. But I guess the point of that is that the specific tools that we used were specific for 2021, 2022 when we made the film. Nowadays, there's all this other really cool stuff. The rig from the Ronin and the camera was a custom build that was hodgepodge Frankenstein from more DJI accessories. Kondor Blue stuff was in there. There was some wooden camera stuff in there. It's like a mix of a bunch of different things, and every accessory was all about like what's the most lightweight and most kind of malleable and efficient version of this. Like we need these connector pieces. Okay, we use the Kondor Blue, the quick release ones. They're really handy. What's the lightest weight little arm piece for like a handle extender? I don't even remember what they were. Honestly, we did a bad job of documenting the rig.
Sure.
So I don't know exactly what's in there. I know for a fact that there are parts in there that, for a while, we wanted to make a second rig. We just have as a backup.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
We couldn't do it. Like we built the first rig, and then we were looking itemized, like item through, like wait, what is this piece? And then you look it up, and it's like, oh, this got discontinued in 2015. This was just some piece that Gareth had,
right,
that he brought in a box that we built the rig with, and it's like you can't get that piece anymore.
Gareth's box of toys.
Gareth is a big gear person. He like buys a lot of stuff,
Okay.
and he had a lot. Like he sort of had a prototype of the rig.
Very cool.
Before we even filmed.
He was very hands-on.
He's a very
That's fun.
tinkerer. He's a tinkerer.
Can I ask, as a filter person?
Yeah.
A guy who makes filters.
Yeah.
With element filters.
Yeah.
What did you use there? Were 4x5s too big? Were you using struts?
Yeah, no 4x5s. We didn't have a matte box. So I don't think any of the three of us involved in the project are big diffusion filter people. It's personal taste. But we did need an ND. So we had a variable ND. We had a variable an Earth brand photo.
There you go.
Stills, a variable ND that screwed into the front of the lens. We put a little tilt a nucleus, some nano on it, so we could control it remotely as if it was an iris, but it was just an ND.
Do some interior to exterior shots.
Yeah, a lot of that. Even just within an interior.
Yeah,
like panning from this window to not the window. That's a two-stop difference, and we just doing a lot of that, but also just setting exposure. That was really one of, I had a lot of things on my plate. One of them was like you mentioned, Gareth was operating the camera. So I was free to do other things, like focus on the lighting. But also I was adjusting the ND. So I was setting exposure on every shot.
You yourself were pulling
I had
on
the handset, yeah.
I love how hands-on that is.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Do you miss that now in the commercials you're doing now and the jobs you're going to do in the future? Do you think you will miss that run and gun nature of it and the skeleton crew?
Well, certainly. I love the speed of it. The thing is, on commercials, especially, the pace is not even set by the crew. There's so many other. Mainly client and approvals and this and that. Like, it's a different rhythm. It's a different cadence. It's not like shooting a narrative. So there's other things that factor into it. But
of course, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's the answer. Is like, it's different projects have different needs, different paces, different whatevers. So I don't necessarily miss it, but I really enjoyed it. Like I would do it again.
Yeah. If
it was appropriate, if it was the right thing. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully something else comes up that's like that.
Cool. Speaking of coming up, can you tease what's next for Oren Soffer?
I wish there was something to tease.
Yeah.
Looking for the next film. It's out there somewhere.
I'm sure it'll come.
Yeah.
After all your excellent success, the creator looks amazing.
Thank you.
Visually stunning.
Yeah.
Do you have any last pieces of advice you want to share with people? Words of wisdom, things that you know, 10 years ago, Oren would have wanted to know.
I think well, two things. Yeah, actually, yes. The 10 years ago, Oren thing, I have a specific answer to. But so I guess there's two things. One is, this is the one piece of advice I always give people is like, if you're a cinematographer, you should be engaging with light and composition all the time. And the way that manifests to me is like, we all have, what's deep in my pocket, we all have like really good cameras on our person all day, everywhere we go all the time.
Absolutely.
And so like, I think, if you're a DP, like you should just be observing light and taking pictures all the time, and make a habit of if that doesn't come naturally to you, like to me it comes naturally. Like I'll walk around wherever and just stop and take pictures all the time. Some people it doesn't come naturally, but if it doesn't, then force yourself. Like say, okay, for the next month, I'm going to take 10 iPhone photos a day, just in my day-to-day. Find interesting compositions, interesting geometry, interesting intersections of light and shadow, like dappled light on the ground. You go to a restaurant, you go to a cafe, you go to wherever, the street, you in your own apartment, like wherever. There's beauty and interesting things all over the place. You just have to observe.
Sure.
And so doing that is a training yourself to observe, and I think that's really important. So that's like a practical, tangible piece of advice, and I tell that to anybody. I'm like, oh, you're going on a trip? Tell 35 photos a day. Pretend you have an old stills, or 24 or 35, whatever you want. You have an old film camera with a single roll of film, and limit yourself. Like, force yourself to edit and curate. Okay, advice for myself 10 years ago. I think the other big thing is, like, it's very easy to get caught up in the, like, circus of filmmaking, including here. And not that there's anything wrong with that or bad about it, but I think it's something to be cognizant of. To, like, not get too caught up in the gear, not get too caught up in, more importantly, like, social media, what other DPs are doing, what other people are doing, and really just focus on yourself and focus on your own work, your own training, your own technique, your own taste.
Absolutely.
And that's more important than any of all that other stuff is distraction. And I say that with a grain of salt because obviously Instagram is very useful and important and a great way to network, market, like do all these things that we do have to do. It's part of the job, but you just have to be smart about how much you allow it to affect you, I guess, and how much, I guess, emphasis you put on it emotionally.
Not to let the comparison steal your own joy.
Well, that's the worst. I mean, the comparison thing is the worst.
Yeah.
It's just the worst trap that everybody falls into, including myself.
Totally. We're all guilty of it.
And we shouldn't. We should stop.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be guilty about it. We should learn from it.
Sure. That's a good philosophy. I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come visit us, come chat.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks to everybody. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course.
This was fun. I love this. Pleasure. This is hypnotic.
The hypnotic marble orbit.
The orbit. It's
orbiting
really cool.
Around.
Super cool.
Us the orbiting rig. Yeah.
I love it. And if you haven't come to check out Kondor Blue.
Yeah, if you're at NAB, check out the Kondor Blue booth.
Yep. Come check out the filters.
Come check out the filters. We got new stuff, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks again, Oren. Appreciate it.